Hello, beautiful soul, and welcome to another Intuitive Creator Spotlight episode. If you're new to our channel, please take a moment to subscribe because we are posting amazing videos and interviews with guests who have been through incredible stories. They come here to share their stories with us, and they are sharing the inspiration with all of us here. Today, we have Cori as a guest. She is a relationship coach who embraced the transformative power of love because after walking away from a 20-year marriage at the age of 57, she decided to embrace her own path of self-reinvention, leading to a life full of joy and a new extraordinary love. So, hi, Cori. Welcome to our series.
Hi, Stella. It's a delight to be here. Thank you so much.
I'm so happy to record this interview with you, and I know that you have a very interesting story. You decided to leave a marriage after 20 years. This must have been very interesting or difficult. I can't wait to hear that from you. Can you share with us, please, what ultimately gave you this courage to make this life-changing decision?
Well, it's a really interesting question, and it's interesting that you frame it as courage, and it is courageous, but I think it was also desperation because I had tried for many years. I'm passionate about personal development. I've been a Buddhist leader for over 35 years, and I have practiced Buddhism, and I really believe that the first place you need to look is in the mirror. So it wasn't an easy decision. I struggled with it for years. I have two kids. They're not kids anymore, but at the time they were teenagers. And what gave me the courage, I suppose, was just realizing that I had tried everything and I couldn't make it work. But from your point of view, Stella, because I know that your audience is interested in spiritual things, I made the decision based on guidance from another Buddhist to chant about it for 3 months before I left. And so we set a date. There was a significant date in the calendar. It was the 26th of April, 2014, that I would know by that morning. And when I got up that morning, I didn't know the answer about whether I wanted to stay or go. As soon as I sat down to chant, which is like a form of meditation, I got this absolute loud in my head, you have to stand alone. Arguably, you can stand alone in a relationship, but the relationship I was in, that wasn't really possible. So I knew it meant I had to go. And it was, honestly, it was heartbreaking. And because you can love a person, but they're not good for you. Like, I didn't hate my husband. I can't give you some story about narcissism or how he beat me or any of that stuff because it wouldn't be true. But there were other ways in which the relationship was very limiting. And I think for any entrepreneurs out there, I will say that one of the things that's quite hard to navigate is when you realize that you don't want to live a conventional lifestyle, whether you're an artist or an entrepreneur or a spiritual person. It's sometimes really hard for the other person because they're like, well, why don't you just go out and get a job? And it just wasn't me, and it wasn't what I wanted to do. So I was prepared to take that risk. In a sense, you could say it was the path of least resistance, actually, to leave.
And you decided to stay true to yourself, which is the most beautiful gift that anyone can gift to themselves. I know that you mentioned in your story that you were leaving someone else's version of yourself. How did you then begin this process of rediscovering who you truly are?
Well, there were seeds of it when I was in my relationship. Like before I got married, I was a singer and a songwriter. And I kind of parked that when I had kids and I got married. My husband didn't want me to go out at night on singing gigs. And he said, I really would rather you were home at night. And at the time I was so in love, I thought, well, I'll just do that. But what happened was I already had that foundation of knowing that I was a creative, that I was an artist. So I had that, and I continued to write songs throughout our relationship. I had a really big break about 10 years before we broke up. I had a song that was covered by a major artist, Kylie Minogue. So I knew that there was potential in my writing. So that was number one. Number two was that I had started a network marketing business. Now, I know a lot of people take exception with network marketing, and I don't do it anymore, but I have to say that for so many people, particularly women, it's a great way out of being stuck, because it's something that you can do in the gaps of time. And so there was that, there was the community of network marketing, there was the personal development. And I think that's what made me realize that I could actually get up on stage and inspire people, for starters, that I could speak in front of thousands of people, and people were like blown away with my story. But also, because I was divorced, what I started doing was I started having the first thing I did was I had a meetup group. We met in a little local place, and it happened to be between Christmas and New Year, a really tough time for people going through divorce. And I just said, do you want to meet? And 20 people showed up in the room. And so I led this session, and that gave me the confidence. And your question really is, how did I set out on that journey, or something like that? And it's just a question of taking the step in front of you and following your intuition. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. This is such a beautiful um, story or journey that you've been through, and then how you decided to connect with all of these people. Because, a lot of the times we hear questions like, oh, where do I need to go? What's my purpose? What's my mission? And I love that you just said you just look at one step at a time, just the step in front of you, because that led you to those groups of people and to connect with them. And often you understand that some of those people are just mirrors to what you're going through. But as you think about your journey through that marriage, what would you say were some of the biggest lessons that you've learned, maybe about yourself and or about life?
Well, there were so many of them, but the first thing that popped into my mind as you asked that was, and because it was network marketing at the beginning, don't rely on someone else to save you. No one is going to come and save you. You have to have the determination. And I don't want us to sound like overly, masculine, like, go do it, or Tony Robbins. But the truth of the matter is, you do have to decide. You do have to decide that you're going to do it. That would be, I would say, the biggest lesson I've learned. The other thing is that you learn about yourself, particularly when you go into the coaching world, and particularly when you are creating a tribe. And one thing I learned about myself is that I'm a very direct person, and that's not to everyone's taste. And I have to be okay with that, because I can try and smooth off bits of my personality, and I constantly work on it. But there's also a huge value in being able to speak the truth to people. For me, my biggest gift, one person on my team said, you're arrestingly authentic, which I think is a great compliment. So it's being okay with who you really are, not with the person you think you should be. And I think that was a lesson in my relationship too, was like, I was trying to mold myself to fit his paradigm, but that was never going to work. That was never going to work. So it's really this thing of owning who you are. I would say those are the two biggest things that come up for me in the moment.
That's really interesting. So, you are sharing with all of us these super important lessons that you've learned about yourself. And as you stayed in this marriage 20 years, this question just comes to me, and I have to ask it. When did you start realizing within these 20 years that something is changing within you, and it's like you want something different, and you experience a new chapter in your life? Was there a particular moment when you just knew that's it? or did it happen
There was
gradually?
a moment, there was actually a moment, which is really, it's a little bit uncomfortable to talk about because it doesn't cast my ex-husband in a very positive light. But there was, all through this time, I knew that something wasn't right, and I kept thinking I could fix it. And we even went to therapy and stuff, you know, like couples therapy and stuff. But there was a defining moment where we were at our tennis club together, and he said something to me, which I personally felt was very disrespectful. And so I just thought, hang on a minute, do you want to stay in that energy where you're so misunderstood? I think the other challenge for us is that he's British, I'm American. On the face of it, that doesn't have to be a challenge. But in our case, you know, I was this person who would go and say hi to everyone, and he wanted to go home. And we just couldn't navigate it. I don't know why. Another couple might be able to navigate that really well, but we couldn't. And yeah, I think that moment at it sounds so weird, that moment at the tennis club, but that really was a defining moment for me in my heart, because I felt so hurt and I felt so misunderstood. Now, I really have a huge agenda around fairness, and if he were to tell the story, he might tell it a completely different way, and I'm okay with that. And I really want to bring this point home, Stella, because I think it's so important if you are going to go through this kind of experience of leaving a partner, the the more you demonize them, the slower your healing will be. And I think people think it's the reverse, but there's an expression, you've probably heard it. It's like drinking poison, expecting it to kill the other person.
Wow, that was such a great expression to talk about, how important it is to be kind, to continue to be kind and share the story and the experience from that place of love. And the fact that you prefer, for everything to be fair. And as you said, like if he would share his story, he may say something different, but you'd be okay with that. This just shows how much you've healed and how much you took the time to reconnect with your beautiful soul. So I know that you decided to then invest a lot in your own growth, in your personal growth. You've worked with a lot of coaches. Can you share with us some of the most impactful moments in this journey of growth that you've experienced?
Gosh, I mean, it's such a long list of people I worked with. So very early on, there was a guy called Cori Donahue. And when I think of it, you know how when you've been doing personal development for a while and you feel like the thing you're going to say is so basic that like, doesn't everyone know it? But we wouldn't be having this interview if everyone knew it. He said to me, tell me all the things you don't want in a prospective partner. Then he said, tell me all the things you do want. And so he got me to write those down. And then he said, now write down the person you need to become to attract that person. And that for me was huge, because I'd never thought of it in that way. But if you look at things from a quantum standpoint, for example, what we are doing as spiritual entrepreneurs and coaches and people who want to create a life, we have to be able to imagine that next level version of ourselves, because that's where it's at. So you call it kindness that I had towards my husband. I want to pick up on that. I think it's being gracious and respectful.
Mhm.
And I do also remember I worked with someone called Lenka Lutonska. I don't know if you know her. She's really, I adore her still. She's a fantastic coach. And she has this journeying process where you have a quantum emotion. And the thing that came up for me was graciousness. And that's not a word I had ever used. So that was really an interesting moment for me too. But honestly, I could bore you for hours. There are so many things that have happened along the way, so many powerful learnings that we have in this. Yeah, yeah. Those are the two that come to mind.
Thank you for sharing that. And it just reminds me how, when people talk about even dieting, I know it's a kind of a different area of
Oh, it's
expertise,
the same.
but how they say, like, if you want to become slimmer or if you want to look in a specific way, begin to behave like that person, eat in a specific way, do exercises like a person that you want to become. So you don't have to wait until that moment. You have to start doing all of those things right now. So it's like bringing that future into the present and working with that
Absolutely.
energy. And that's such a beautiful thing, because as we do that and we shift from the inside, so many things around us shift as well. So let me ask you this, Cori. When did you know it's time to tell your kids about your decision?
Oh God. It's never time.
Mm,
It's never time. That was definitely the worst day of my life. And I had that happen to me as well. I had my parents when I was 10. I woke up one morning and my father wasn't in the house. And I said to my mother, "Where's Daddy?" And she said, "Daddy doesn't live here anymore." So I know what it's like to go through that. I don't know how we knew. We set a date, we sat them down. It's the responses of kids are really interesting. You never know what they're going to say. And yeah, it's just such a shock for them. Even if you've been arguing for years, they never can expect that that will happen to their family. Really, you kind of, as a child, you intuitively know it. You intuitively know it, but you can't verbalize it because you it's yeah, it's impossible to even believe that that could happen to you. That's how big it is. I think it was for me, and I'm sure it was for my kids, but they're doing really well.
did your relationship with them change in any way after?
Uh well, because they were young teenagers when it happened, I mean, they're already going through a big process of change. And I think at the beginning, one of the things that happened was the house that I moved into was the house of my youngest son's best friend when they were little. And he didn't want to come to the house and visit, but he changed his mind very quickly. So
Mm,
yeah, I mean, it was hard for them. I don't think my relationship with them changed. No, I think we both have very strong relationships with them. But as they get older, of course, your relationships do change. They're
mm.
24 and 27 now, so they've left home and they're growing into adults, and yeah, they do change. But their basic character remains the same, I think, as you will see.
And it's great that you continue to have this strong connection with them. It's really beautiful. Now, I know that after such a long marriage, you eventually started dating again. How did
Yes.
you navigate the world of modern dating? Did you have some surprises or
It
some
was
funny
it
stories?
was awful. It was awful. I'm not going to lie. If there are any women out there going through this, I absolutely know what you're going through. I also saw several dating coaches. So I had a lot of help with that. And this whole thing about shifting your energy is really important when you're dating. So God, I could tell you a million stories. Every day I'm thinking of another story that happened when I was dating, and the people who would fabricate stuff and not show up as they were, and I mean, just even as I'm talking to you, someone else is flying into my head and I'm thinking, "Oh, really difficult." And the also the disappointment, because you so want to meet someone, but it wasn't my time until it was. And that
Mm.
was a very fluky situation. Very fluky.
How did you know this person, your current partner, is your person?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I want to tell you the story because it's so crazy. We had connected through Facebook dating in September of, must have been 2021, I think, or 22, 2021. And we we started talking on WhatsApp, and he was like, "Oh, my English isn't good enough. I don't think this is going to work." And I thought, another loser. That was my thought immediately. Another loser. Because I had been on so many dates. Stella, I had dated at least 50 guys. I had connected with hundreds of guys, and I am not exaggerating. So I thought, oh, I'm just going to park that one. Anyway, the following January, I went to Spain and I got in touch with my landlord. My landlord's name was Giuseppe. And I texted him and said, "Do you have a blender?" But I texted the wrong Giuseppe.
Oh, that's
"Hey, how you doing? What are you up to?" Which is one of the things he still says to this day. "Hey, how you doing? Hey, darling, what are you up to?" And I said, "Oh, I'm just going to Spain." I was like, you know, meh, that kind of really, but polite, but like, oh God, not another loser. He said, "Oh, well, send me pictures." I thought, okay, so I'll send him photographs of when I'm in Spain. Then I went for a month and I came back and he asked me out on a date. And I remember I was in this dating group and I was like, oh, I don't want to go on another date. Oh, I'm going to meet another loser. This is going to be awful. But I had trained myself to do it anyway. I had trained myself to just see it as meeting with a friend. So I show up at the place. He's waiting outside. He's super polite, super courteous, opens the door for me, very Italian, puts his hand to guide me in the door. Very natural. Like I could tell there was no mask with this person. He was just very authentic. And I thought, wow, this is so different. I felt relief wash over my body. Like, this could be quite nice. So we started dating. It wasn't all smooth sailing from there. We did have one bump in the road, but yeah, we had a few bumps in the road actually, but we're here we are. We've been living together for 2 years. It's great. I have to say that my love for this person gets deeper all the time. He's very, he's really extraordinary person. Probably the kindest person I have ever met. And that's a good contrast with me because I can be quite spiky. I'm not the sort of, I'm not, he's very easygoing and I'm very not easygoing. So it's quite a good balance, which is something I do believe in with relationships. I think it's good to have that because you learn from each other.
Absolutely. It's always great to have a good balance and to continue to work on it as well. And so, you know how you mentioned that previously in your 20 years marriage, your ex-husband was from the UK, you're from America, and there was this like slight difference, right, in how you respond to the world around you. Now, I understand that your current partner is also from a different culture. How
Yes.
do you navigate these differences now?
To be honest with you, I think Italian culture is much closer to American culture than
Mhm.
British culture is, because they're very open. They're much more direct than British people. They're definitely very unbelievably affectionate and quite physical. And that's really, I love that.
Mm.
We don't really have any culture clashes, funnily enough. We don't. I'm trying to think if there are any clashes we have. One thing is very interesting. He comes from a family and they're very, very close. So he talks to his brother and his sister every day and his mother most days, maybe every other day. I don't do that. I don't come from a strong family. I come from a divorced family. I had a stepmother and a stepfather. I'm not that close to my brother. So that is very different. But you see, for me, I find that quite containing and encouraging to know, firstly, that that exists and to have what I personally think is a healthier model in
Mm.
my life, because I didn't come from that model. So I think it's amazing to see people who really love each other, and where the love and the bond is so strong. He has a twin brother as well, so that's a big difference,
It
you know.
explains why they want to talk to each other so much.
Yeah, yeah.
So now I know that you work with amazing clients that come into your world. Say if somebody comes into your world and they know, okay, I want to work with Cori, I really need her help. How do you start connecting with your clients? Do you take them through a process? Do you interact with them, or do you share any templates first for them to fill in the forms, or how does this happen?
You mean at the beginning when they come in?
Yes,
I
yes.
think at the beginning when they come in, I would have, often they come in through a smaller program I've done, or a master class or something like that. But I think the way I really like to work, because I do pick up people, I'm quite intuitive like yourself. And so I pick up on people very quickly. So I prefer really just to have a conversation and see what they're at. I am in the process of building a framework, and I'm really, really excited about it, because my whole idea is that to attract love into your life, it's exactly as that guy Corey Donahue said all those years ago. You have to become the person. So I'm doing a 4-week program at the end of the month called Becoming Her, but I'm creating a much bigger framework where we have the different aspects, like the awakened woman, the fulfilled woman, the alive woman, I can't remember all of them, but at the end, the culmination is the adored woman. And so I do have a framework for that, which I'm building at the moment. And that's going to be my signature program. Haven't built it yet. I'm really in the habit of working one-to-one. I work one-to-one for the most part. And every situation is so different, because I do also work with people who are trying to decide whether to stay or go in their long-term relationship. I work with people who have recently been divorced, and I work with people who want to be out on the dating scene. And those are really very different groups of people. So understanding the situation that the person finds themselves in is very important, and also the ramifications. Like if you've just left someone, there's the whole thing around um finances and money often, and what you're going to do with yourself, and how you're going to build your own life apart from that person. So it's a very mixed bag.
Mhm.
So I prefer getting on a call with someone and just talking to them and saying, well, what is it you need, and what are you going through, and what do you perceive the limitations of your situation are.
So everyone who's watching us, feel free to check out the description of this video and see how you can connect with Cori and have a call with her. Check out her programs, because you may be watching this video at a later date and she may be creating something else. So check out the website that's in the description of this video. So Cori, to the beautiful ladies who are watching us that are over 50 and they look for love and they are asking themselves, does love even exist? Or do I just let it go and just focus on myself? What message would you share with these beautiful ladies for
Well,
questioning love?
it's really interesting that you've expressed it in a almost a dualistic way, almost a binary way. I would say, first of all, I didn't believe it either. I I really, really got to the point where I had almost lost hope, but I kept going anyway, and I kept doing the work anyway. And so in a way, my message is, do the work to become the person you want to be in a relationship, and to believe, and this does take work, to believe that that is enough, and that you don't have to hide parts of yourself in order to find love, because it doesn't work. That
Mm.
would be my message, to learn how to really embrace who you are and believe there is someone out there for you if you want it. And I hate the message that's out there that says, well, you have to be completely healed first before you find someone. That is nonsense. Because no one is completely healed. I defy anyone who's listening to this to find me someone who's completely healed. You just
That is
have to be willing to
always
do the work.
There is always something that will come up because we also live in the present moment and situations happen in the present moment. And maybe a few years from now, you'll look back at the moment now and think, oh, maybe I could have done things differently. Thank you so much for sharing this beautiful message with everybody who's watching us. And if those same beautiful ladies over 50s who are watching us and are taking your message in about love, they're also thinking, okay, so you mentioned about the finances. Do I first focus on my finances and my path and then look for love? Or do I work on both of these things at the same
That's
time?
a great question, Stella, because it's both, because they're effectively the same thing. And I think that we tend to have these buckets, but really when you work on yourself, you're opening the door to all those things, whichever way you slice it, really. I mean, right now for me, and this is just being very authentic right now for me, I'm expanding the way I applied what I did to the relationship bucket to the rest of my life. And it will always be like that. So whatever work you do is only going to help you, whether you get the guy or not. You know, it doesn't matter which way you work on it. Basically, there are three games in life: the health game, the money game, and the relationship game. And if you move forward in any of them, you'll have the tools to move forward in all of them.
What a great reminder.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
That's a great message. Thank you.
You're
So, as
welcome.
we're wrapping up this episode, I just love that you felt guided to share this with us. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience, with the intuitive creators who are watching us before we wrap up the episode?
I would just say you can have what you want. You can. I'm 67 years old. I got divorced at 57, and I'm still attracting things into my life, and I'm still super excited about life. You definitely can have what you want, but you have to be prepared to do the work to get you there. And when I say work, it makes it sound like such a grind. That's not what I mean. I mean the inner
Mhm.
transformation. I call it a human revolution.
Thank you, Cori. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I'm sure that there are so many who are watching us and are taking inspiration from your message and your story. And this is the whole idea about this series. So thank you so much for being here today with me and for recording this episode with me. And thank you to everyone who's watching us. Don't forget to check out the description of this video, connect with Cori and myself, and subscribe to this channel. Take care. Bye-bye.